This is Mikhail Tank, and this is the Archetypal Mosaic and its 11th season. This particular episode is about, specifically, Jack Nicholson's The Joker from the 1989 film Batman. I just took the time to really watch the movie. And as someone who appreciates Jack, as someone who has had Dark Soul Theater since I was 13, my own theater of shadows and of psychology, as someone who's played the Joker, I did a one-man show called The Joker, and you can actually hear perhaps the main monologue through Apple Music if you just put in my name, The Joker, my totally original variant. I'm going to, again, specifically talk about Jack Nicholson's Joker. I know there have been many actors who've portrayed the Joker, none of which I think they don't come close to Jack. This is obviously my personal view. I'm going to describe this in detail. I find that the actors, they get lost in the tonalities. People don't understand what darkness is. Due to religious obscurities and very strong divides, darkness, as I've stated since I was 13, darkness is misunderstood, mislabeled, miscategorized as negativity. In fact, I have a show playing now through New Zealand Fringe which you can watch from anywhere, where I delve into the nitty-gritty, into the very corners of the difference between the concepts of darkness and negativity. You could just go to mikhailtank.com or the New Zealand Fringe. It's still playing now for a little bit longer. Now back to Jack Nicholson's Joker. Whereas I find other artists getting lost in the tonalities, taking the concept way too seriously, finding a backstory of such despair and pain that it becomes this sad, self-destructive clown, whether in reality or as an art piece, I throw all that in the garbage, because it's not a self-destructive character, and it's not 100% serious character. And yes, those of us who come from pain in order to create, and the Joker, as Jack Nicholson says, is an artist. Joker is a dark representation of an artist, somebody who comes from, in the case of the 1989 film, being thrown into the toxic, molded waste, appears as a living ghoul that now has the freedom to take over in a way. So the actors that play the Joker, wherein they are doing a vendetta, or they're going after only punishing, or only taking seriously their pain to the point of tears and the constant kind of hysterical element, they're really missing the point that out of darkness comes light. And it's not a sad light. It's not a crying light. It's a fun light. What Jack does unlike the others, is that he really enjoys the resurrection of his darkness. Whereas as a human-only element, he had so many limitations and constraints. As the Joker, he has unlimited non-constraints. At the same time, it's fun. What's incredible is that there's so many layers of dialogue, so many layers of communicating and dealing with other characters, where he listens. He listens to the characters. He does have objectives. He does have clear actions. He does have wants, but he listens. And that's another interesting thing, because some people assume that the Joker equals hubris, that he simply doesn't have to listen, he just talks like a dictator, like a despot. But again, that's not multi-level, that's totally surface. That's not deep. The Joker listens. The reason why he's funny is because he's responding in the moment through his exceptional, charismatic, laughing ego. And again, it's so easy to, from a surface perspective, to just say, oh, that's all ego, and ego is evil and must be removed and all this stuff. When we look at ego as a healthy member of the psyche, not the hubris-driven ego that just talks and doesn't listen, because that one is useless, but the one that can resurrect the soul, the one that can create another layer of strengthened personality, one that can express itself in a freedom-oriented, individual way. These are elements that allow us to embrace the darkness and embrace the Joker in particular, not because of his evil streak, but because there's a level of freedom and excitement and the ability to express oneself fully without the constraints. I think that's why psychologically there's that kind of an appreciation for this character. However, in Nicholson's Joker, there is that dance, both physical dance. He dances multiple times in the movie. He dances in the museum. He dances in the float. He dances with his hands and arms as he makes fun of Batman. There's always that boombox around him, I think quite a few times throughout the film. But the dance that I'm talking about is the dance where the character flies out of constraints. And so for me, because I don't like negativity, I don't like violence, I don't like all that unnecessary garbage, I like just the freedom and the expression and the theatrics and the fun. That's the part that I like. I feel like what the Joker shows is that when people in society and individuals who have maybe strong personalities or temperaments or intelligence, particularly EQ, which is the intelligence that I think is most favorable, when they're limited and constrained by certain misunderstandings, including the misunderstanding of darkness in society, and the forceful nature of what is right and wrong and sin and this and that, and there's all of this kind of shame and all of this stuff, and people just boil and go nuts. That's not good. That's not okay. And that's not what I believe in. That's why art is so beautiful. But in this case, Jack plays the Joker as an artist who enjoys the freedom away from constraints. Because it's a fictional universe, he goes way overboard. In a non-fictional universe, there is that delineation of how far one can go, especially artistically speaking. So it becomes a very fun character. What bothered me with all the other ones after him is how, like I said, seriously they took it, how they wanted to portray the pain, which is actually very superficial, because the whole purpose of the Joker is getting through the pain, and how the laughter, his laughter is sincere laughter. A lot of people after him, their laughter is protecting their pain laughter, which is insincere laughter, at least for me. I think it appears super sincere, but it's actually insincere, because it's an oxymoron that you resurrect into the next psyche element of yourself, only to wallow in sorrow of the previous element. So it doesn't really make sense. So what I also love are the colorful, beautiful jackets and the makeup, and of course the business deal. Now, I recommended that DC and Warner Brothers release a coffee table book specifically about Jack's role, business deal, character work, psychological profiling, best quotes, perhaps downloads with voice, the best quotes and vocal drafts and all that stuff. Maybe a handwritten, of course, will be printed letter and signature for the book and the fans. That would be incredible to have. Such a beautiful book. I hope it comes out one day. The details of the deal, the business deal that Jack made to play this role, I don't know all of them. I'm not sure if all of them have ever been made public, but some elements which likely are accurate is the fact that he signed up for a top billing, meaning that Keaton, Nicholson would be the main names. It would be a 3-week shooting schedule, which actually turned into 110 days or so. I can't remember exactly. Then instead of getting his $10 million per film, he agreed to a brilliant $6 million plus a percentage of the film and merchandising, which actually made him in this role make more money than any actor's ever made for any film, I believe, which is in between 70 to $100 million altogether. Which is for the role, but it's not just a role, obviously. It's an entire psychological imprint, basically for the entire collective unconscious. That's how powerful his representation was and is. So the deal was the most extraordinary deal I think maybe ever made by an actor for a film. He was the first choice, unlike Keaton, who was previously a comedic actor. And I'm so glad Robin Williams did not win that role. I'm not a fan of Robin Williams. And to me, he's just like the Jokers later who were sad inside, and they didn't understand darkness. I mean, I understand darkness because, I've been doing art through that for the majority of my life. So I get Jack real well because his understanding of darkness, in my opinion, is the fact that, like I said, it's something to surpass and enjoy the resurrection of the inner self, as opposed to, blabber about it and be all, I'm going through darkness, I'm gonna cry and smile. And that's just not interesting. So the deal is a wow. The role is implanted into the collective psyche. I think what's also fascinating is the concept of dominance, scene dominance. Of course, Jack dominates, I think, pretty much every scene in every movie he's in, unless there's a reason for him not to. Whether it's in A Few Good Men, in the courtroom scene, of course, you can't handle the truth, and in Cuckoo's Nest, and in The Shining with the door, and every iconic image of him, it dominates a scene. What's fascinating is the domination with Batman, played by Michael Keaton. What's fascinating is that it's almost like Michael Keaton realizes that to allow Jack to dominate will allow Batman to respond in domination, as opposed to going head to head at the same time in the same beat, because Nicholson's energy and charisma are so strong that there is no one who can dominate him in the same beat. They can dominate him in a response beat, which is what happens in this film. It's really weird and fascinating to watch this passive beat and then a dominating response, which is what happens throughout the whole movie between the two characters. Usually, when there's a villain and a protagonist, the protagonist usually dominates, unless there's in the climax, of course. But the thing is that when there's a fight, as there are here, the fight is in the same beats. Here, the beat always goes to Nicholson, and then there's a response beat. And that's really interesting, kind of like directorial. I'm not even sure exactly if it was a directorial choice, or if it was also an acting choice by Keaton, just not to get in the way. Let's see. I think one of my absolute favorite scenes is the board meeting, where the gentlemen who are in the shadow government sit in the room, and they just kind of like go, well, we don't know who you are, we don't trust you, are you for real? And then he goes, you bet I am. I'm for real, but I'm also the biggest joke you'll ever meet. And then he does what he does with his hand, bzzz, and turns one of the speakers into a steak. Very similar to what Angelica's Grand High Witch does in the very beginning of the meeting with the RSPCC. in the hall of the hotel when the witches take off their wigs, gloves, and shoes. It's always a matter of dominance, where the Grand High whatever, or the Joker, people just don't believe their power. They're like, well, who are you? And then there's the darkening, usually of the rat, the squealer, turning into a steak. So there's such kind of a mixture of airiness, elegance, grounding, majesty, eccentricity, colorfulness, confidence, in the moment calculation, and the ability to just be free, which unites and combines the characterization that Nicholson put into the role. It's interesting that Nicholson's advice to at least one of the other Joker actors was, don't get lost in the darkness, and like a warning. And it's interesting because, like I mentioned, I see it more like getting lost in the modality. It's like the modality is the problem is with darkness, is if you don't really understand darkness, then you create like a little rat maze or a little puzzle, and if you can't really see it, you just keep knocking your head at the wall, and it becomes destructive. But if you really understand darkness, you can walk right through it, get to the other side, and enjoy it, and without being, without turning insane or anything. So it's not just a mental thing, it's like a soul thing. You got to be on another level to really understand this stuff, and to allow it to create a metamorphosis. And again, the metamorphosis includes the concept of relishing getting through the darkness. There's that relishing that people miss. They want to play the darkness. They don't get that they're going through it and relishing getting through it, seeing in the dark, through the dark, not just hitting their head against a wall in the dark. And then I guess final thought would be the fact that Jack's ability to create such a colorful, powerful character that's not a victim. At the very end, well, I hope it's not a spoiler. If it is, just be aware that it could be. What's fascinating is at the very end, he's got a couple of beats to fly off on the ladder of the helicopter. He could do it, but he takes the 2 beats and he rubs it in. You two are gonna fall down the way these bricks are made nowadays, and I'm safe. And by that time, as again Batman is watching, he's like, okay, here's a hubris, and we know that in every legend after hubris there's a fall, literally. And what's cute is that the Joker's tied to the Joker, the gargoyle, and Now, because we know that Batman is always watching the theatrics before responding because he just can't compete, and because we know that Batman has his own very strong reason to destroy the Joker, because the Joker is the person responsible for the tragedy of Batman's life, which is horrifying, God forbid. The point is, though, that Batman literally is waiting for the Joker to fly off on the ladder with his helicopter. But the Joker just takes a couple of more steps closer, a couple of more laughs, a couple of more rubbing it in their faces. And I swear that the timing, there's those two beats with which Batman connects the foot to the gargoyle, and they all crash down with that fantastic laugh at the end. But if the Joker was like, okay, see you later, guys, I'm flying off, foot up, dance into the stair, dance up a little bit higher. If he just took 2-3 steps, 2-3 beats before, without the hubris, without the smugness. Now I know that smugness is key, but why not survive instead of being smug at the end, right? I mean, I know it's all written that way and directed that way, and it's done brilliantly. I'm just saying that there were those 2 or 3 beats where he could have just danced right up some of those stairs. Or he could have hit that brick a little bit faster, so they would have to fly Batman style down before anything happened. There could have been a couple of beats, dance beats. But it was what it was. The ending was really interesting because watching Nicholson surrender, it's a very fascinating thing, because the Joker really doesn't surrender. It's against character, against type in a way. What's fascinating is that lengthy realization moment, almost like a blooper reel, where he is like, oh my God, that gargoyle weighs too much. I can't do anything. I could have jumped on the gargoyle. Why not, right? But the gargoyle's already hanging, and there's nothing I can do. So, and that realization blooperness, that maybe 5 beat pause, and that dropping of the smile and the eye smile, because the eyes smile the rest of the movie aside from that part. So the mouth drops, the eyes drop, and then the body drops. And what's fascinating is that there's really that almost a controlled allowance of what's happening. It's like, I'm not a victim, I'm still the Joker, but there's this gargoyle that's too heavy, it's pulling me down. I'm literally gonna fall as the Joker in my moment of stylistic elegance. So there's a lot of beats there, and again, Batman is pretty much just like the audience at that time, and again, then there's a reaction. So I also really loved in the museum when they're misbehaving terribly, and then he comes to that kind of like the butcher painting, and he tells his first lieutenant, for the handyman, he goes, no, don't mess up that painting, I like it. And that was very cute. It was very in the moment, in character, and believable for what it was. Altogether, there were no beats lost. There were no moments where the energy sunk, where the energy was ultra high. There was a rhythm to the character which matched the whole film. All the movements matched. The costumes matched. The makeup and the non-makeup matched. The voice matched. There was nowhere where there were inaccurate pauses or energy shifts that weren't true. Everything was stylized as a whole, as opposed to pieces. I also love the fact that he, in his contract, it said that he would have so many hours a day after leaving the set to rest. And he also had days off for his Laker games in LA. So basically, he made sure that his energy levels were restored. At no point did he have to, I don't know the exact hours, but at no point did he have to go home at 3 a.m. and wake up for 6 a.m. call time. So have 3-4 hours of sleep and then deliver that kind of energy would be, not realistic. To deliver that kind of intensity and energy, one must rest. And that's part of his deal. So I totally understand that too. When I'm doing a show or recording an album, if I don't have the correct sleep and the ability to let my soul do its thing when I sleep, I'm not going to be able to provide that kind of truth, that kind of spirit to the recording, because a part of me will not be available there because it'll be tired, basically. So from every single perspective, from the understanding of the darkness to the enjoyment, to the physical rest, to the beats and the rhythm, and the self-awareness, the non-intrusive nature, and the cynicism and the humor all make it something truly delectable in an artistic way, truly beautiful and endless, and not all